The Kybalion, Chapter 8. Continue. I got cut off. I'm going to start on the 7 planes of physical. The 7 minor planes of physical. These 7 minor planes, physical planes, are as follows. The plane of matter A. The plane of matter A. The plane of matter B. The plane of matter C. The plane of the ethereal substance. The plane of energy A. The plane of energy B. The plane of energy C. The plane of matter A comprises the forms of matter in its forms of solids, liquids, and gases, as generally recognized by the textbooks on physics. The plane of matter B comprises certain higher and more subtle forms of matter, of existence of which modern science is but recognizing the phenomena of radiant matter and its phases of radium, etc., belonging to the lower subdivisions of the minor plane. The plane of matter C comprises forms of the most subtle and tenuous matter, the existence of that which is not suspected by ordinary scientists. The plane of ethereal substance comprises of that which science speaks of the ether, a substance of extreme tenuity and elasticity, pervading all universal space and acting as a medium for the transmission of waves of energy, such as light, heat, electricity, etc. This ethereal substance forms the connecting link between matter, so-called, and energy, and partakes of the nature of each. The Hermetic teachings, however, instruct that this plane has 7 subdivisions, as have all the minor planes, and that the fact that there are 7 ethers instead of but 1. Next above the plane of the ethereal substance comes the plane of energy A, which comprises of ordinary terms of energy known as science, its 7 subdivisions being, respectively, heat, light, magnetism, electricity, and attraction, including gravitation, cohesion, chemical affinity, etc., and several other forms of energy indicated by scientific experiments but not yet named or classified. The plane of energy B comprises of 7 subplanes or higher forms of energy not as yet discovered by science but have been called nature's final forces, and which are called into operation and manifestation of certain forms of mental phenomena, and by which such phenomena becomes possible. The plane of matter C comprises 7 subplanes of energy so highly organized that it bears many of the characteristics of life, but which is not recognized by the minds of men in the ordinary plane of development, being available for the use of the beings on the spiritual plane only. Such energy is unthinkable to ordinary man, and may be considered almost as the divine power, the beings employing the same or as gods, compared even to the highest human types known to us. The great mental plane comprises of those forms of living things known to us in ordinary life, as well as certain other forms not so well known except to occultists. The classification of the 7 minor mental planes is more or less satisfactory and arbitrary, unless accompanied by elaborate explanations which are foreign to the purpose of this particular work. But we might as well mention them. They are as follows. 1. The plane of mineral mind. 2. The plane of elemental mind A. 3. The plane of plant mind. 4. The plane of elemental mind B. 5. The plane of animal mind. 6. The plane of elemental mind C. 7. The plane of human mind. The plane of mineral mind comprises of the states and conditions of the units or entities or groups and combinations of the same, which animate the forms known to us as minerals, chemicals, etc. These entities must not be confounded with the molecules, atoms, and corpuscles themselves, the latter being merely a material bodies or forms of the higher entities, just as man's body is but the material form and not himself. These entities may be called souls in one sense, and are living beings of a low degree of development, life, and mind, just as a little more than units of living energy, which comprise of higher subdivisions of the highest physical plane. The average mind does not generally attribute the possession of mind, soul, or life to the mineral kingdom, but all occultists recognize the existence of the same, and modern science is rapidly moving forward to the point of view of the hermetic in this respect. The molecules, atoms, and corpuscles have their loves and hates, likes and dislikes, attractions and repulsions, affinities and non-affinities, etc. And some of the more daring and modern scientific minds have expressed the opinion that the desire and will, emotions and feelings of the atoms differ only in degree from those of man. We have no time or space to argue this matter here. All occultists know it to be fact, and others will refer to some of the more recent scientific works for outside corroboration. There are the usual seven subdivisions to this plane. The plane of elemental mind A. Comprises of state or conditions and degree of mental and vital development of a class of entities unknown to average man, but recognized to occultists. They are invisible to the ordinary senses of man, but nevertheless exist and play their part in the drama of the universe. Their degree of intelligence is between that of mineral and chemical entities on one hand, and the entities of plant kingdom on the other. There are 7 subdivisions to this plane also. The plane of plant mind. In its 7 subdivisions comprises states or conditions of entities comprising of kingdoms of the plant world, the vital and mental phenomena of which is fairly well understood by the average intelligent person. Many new and interesting scientific works regarding mind and life in plants having been published during the last decade. Plants have life, mind, and souls, as well as have man, animals, man, and superman. The plane of elemental mind in its 7 subdivisions comprised of the states or conditions of the higher form of elemental or unseen entities playing their part in the general work of the universe, the mind and life of which form a part of the scale between the plane of plant mind and the plane of animal mind, the entities partaking of the nature of both. The plane of animal mind in its 7 subdivisions comprising of the states and conditions of the entities, beings, or souls animating the animal forms of life, familiar to us all. It is not necessary to go into details regarding this kingdom or plane of life, for the animal world is familiar to us as is our own. The plane of the elemental mind in its 7 subdivisions comprised of those entities or being invisible as are all such elemental forms, which partake of the nature of both animal and human life in a degree and in certain combinations. The highest forms are semi-human in intelligence. Pardon me. The plane of human mind in its 7 subdivisions comprised of those manifestations of life and mentality which are common to man in his various grades, degrees, and divisions. In this connection, we wish to make a point out the fact that the average man today occupies but the 4th subdivision of plane of human mind, and only the most intelligent have crossed the borders to the 5th subdivision. It has taken the race millions of years to reach this stage, and it will take many more for the race to move on to the 6th and 7th subdivisions and beyond. But remember, there have been races before us which have passed through these degrees and then on higher planes. Our own race is the 5th, with stragglers from the 4th, which have set forth upon the path. And then there are a few advanced souls of our own race who have outstripped the masses, and who have passed on the 6th and 7th subdivisions, and some few being still further on. The man of the 6th subdivision will be the Superman. He of the 7th will be the Overman. In our consideration of the 7 minor mental planes, we have merely referred to the 3 elemental planes in a general way. We do not wish to go into the subject in detail in his work, for it does not belong to this part of the general philosophy and teachings. But we may say this much in order to give you a clearer idea of the relation between the planes of the more familiar ones. The elementary planes bear the same relation to the planes of mineral, plant, animal, and human mentality and life that the black keys on the piano do to the white keys. The white keys are sufficient to pardon me. The white keys are sufficient to produce music, but there are certain scales, melodies, and harmonies in which the black keys play their part, and in which their presence is necessary. There is also necessary as connecting links of soul conditions, entity states, etc., between the several other planes, certain forms of development being attained therein. This last fact given to the reader who can read between the lines a new light upon the process of evolution and the new key to the secretive door of the leaps of life between kingdom and kingdom. The great kingdoms of the elementals are fully recognized by all occultists, and the esoteric writings are full of mention of them. The readers of Bulwer's Sononi and similar tales will recognize the entities inhabiting these planes of life. Passing on to the great mental plane of the great spiritual plane, what shall we say? How can we explain these higher states of being, life, and mind to minds as yet unable to grasp and understand the higher subdivisions of the plane of human mind? The task is impossible. We can only speak in the most general terms. How may light be described to a man born blind? How sugar to a man who has never tasted anything sweet? How harmony to one born deaf? All we can say is that the 7 minor planes of the great spiritual plane, each minor plane having its 7 subdivisions, comprises of beings possessing life, mind, and form as far above that of man of today as a ladder is above the earthworm, mineral, or even certain forms of energy or matter. The life of these beings is so far transcends ours that we cannot even think to details of the same. Their mind so far transcends ours that to them we scarcely seem to think. And our mental processes seem almost akin to material processes. The matter of which their forms are comprised is of the highest planes of matter. Nay, some are even said to be clothed in pure energy. What may be said of such beings? On the 7 minor planes of the great spiritual plane exist beings of whom we may speak as angels, archangels, demigods. On the lower minor planes dwell those great souls whom we call masters and adepts. Above them come the great hierarchy of the angelic hosts, unthinkable to man, and above those come those who may, without reverence, be called the gods. So high in the scale of being are they, their being intelligence and power, being akin to those attributed by the races of man to the conception of deity. These beings are beyond even the highest flights of the human imagination, the word divine being the only one applicable to them. Many of these beings, as well as the angelic hosts, take the greatest interest in the affairs of the universe and play an important part in its affairs. These unseen divinities and angelic helpers extend their influences freely and powerfully in the processes of evolution and cosmic progress. Their occasional intervention and assistance in human affairs has led to the many legends, beliefs, religions, traditions of the race, past and present. They have superimposed their knowledge and power onto the world again and again, all under the law of the all, of course. But yet even the highest of these advanced beings exist merely in the creation of and in the mind of the all, and are subject to the cosmic processes and universal laws. They are still mortal. We may call them gods if we like, but still they are but the elder brethren of the race, the advanced souls who have outstripped their brethren and who have foregone the ecstasy of absorption by the all in order to help the race on its upward journey along the path. But they belong to the universe and are subject to its conditions. They are mortal, and their plane is below that of absolute spirit. Only the most advanced hermetists are able to grasp the inner teachings regarding the state of existence and powers manifested on the spiritual planes. The phenomena is so much higher than that of our mental planes that the confusion of ideas will surely result from the attempt to describe the same. Only those whose minds have been carefully trained along the lines of the Hermetic philosophy for years, yes, those who have brought with them from other incarnations the knowledge acquired previously, can comprehend just what is meant by the teachings regarding these spiritual planes. And much of these inner teachings is held by the Hermetists as being too sacred, important, or even dangerous for general public dissemination. The intelligent student may recognize what is meant by this when we state the meaning of spirit, as used by the Hermetists, as akin to living power, animating force, inner essence, essence of life, etc., etc., which meaning must not be confounded by the usual and commonly employed to the connections with the term, i.e., religious, ecclesiastic, spiritual, ethereal, holy, etc., etc. To occultists, the word spirit is used in a sense of the animating principle, carrying with it the idea of power, living energy, mystic force, etc. And occultists know that that which is known to them as spiritual power may be employed for evil as well as good ends, in accordance with the principle of polarity, a fact which has been recognized by the majority of the religions in their conceptions of Satan, Beelzebub, the devil, Lucifer, fallen angels, etc. etc. And so the knowledge regarding these planes has been kept in the holies of holies, in the esoteric fraternities of the occult orders, in the secret chambers of the temple. But this may be said here, that those who have attained high spiritual powers and have misused them have a terrible fate in store for them, and the swing of the pendulum of the rhythm will inevitably swing them back to the furthest extreme of material existence, from which point they must retrace their steps spiritward along the weary rounds of the path, but always with the added torture of having always with the lingering memory of the heights from which they fell owing to their evil actions. The legend of the fallen angels have a basis in actual fact, as all advanced occultists know. The striving for selfish power on the spiritual planes inevitably results in the selfish soul losing its spiritual balance and falling back as far as it had previously risen. But to even such a soul, the opportunity to return is given, and such souls make the return journey, paying the terrible penalty according to the invariable law. In conclusion, we would again remind you that according to the principle of correspondence, which embodies the truth, as above, so below, as below, so above, all of the 7 Hermetic principles are in full operation on all and many planes, physical, mental, and spiritual. The principle of mental substance, of course, applies to all these planes, for all are held in the mind of the all. The principle of correspondence manifests in all, for there is a correspondence, harmony, agreement between the several planes. The principle of vibration manifests on all planes. In fact, the very differences that go to make up the planes arise from the vibration, as we have explained. The principle of polarity manifests on each plane, the extremes of poles being apparently the opposite in contradiction. The principle of rhythm manifests on each plane, the movement of the phenomena having its ebb and flow, rise and flow, incoming and outgoing. The principle of cause and effect manifests on each plane, every effect having its cause, and every cause having its effect. The principle of Jennifer manifests on each plane, and creative energy being always manifest, the operating along the lines of the masculine and feminine aspects. As above, so below. As below, so above. The centuries-old Hermetic axiom embodies one of the great principles of universal phenomena. As we proceed with the consideration of the remaining principles, we will see even more clearly the truth of this universal nature of this great principle of correspondence. Great.